Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Diplomatic Enclave. I'm your host Omar, Khalid. But as is the normal with this show, we always interview heads of organizations, ambassadors, sometimes foreign ministers, and sometimes even presidents and prime ministers. Today we have the unique opportunity to have with us the Regional Director, Asia Pacific, of an organization that comes under the ambit of the United Nations and has so many mandates to it. But what is very interesting about it is that it had a lady of Pakistani origin, Nafis Sadiq, who was at the helm of affairs from 1987 to 2000 as the executive director of this organization. She built it, she made it what it is today, and we are so proud that at the base of this organization is this wonderful lady that we can still call our own and our legend. Today, we are joined by another person who's been working diligently in this organization since the last 20 years and for the UNFPA in this very post since the last 1 year. He is none other than Mr. P.O. Smith, who is the Regional Director of Asia Pacific. Thank you very much, P.O., to have joined us. I hope you don't mind me calling you by your first name.
Please, of course, Omar. Please.
All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for your time, P.O. I understand that you are here for a short visit. What brings you to Pakistan and what are your impressions as far as our country is concerned?
Well, I have to tell you, it's wonderful to be in Pakistan. This has been a visit long in the waiting for me. And of course, Pakistan has a very unique history with our organization, UNFPA. I arrived a few days ago and started my visit in Karachi. There I was able to visit some of our work with respect to providing maternal and reproductive health care to women. For also to visit our work around fistula repair, which of course is a very debilitating condition for many women. And I have to tell you, really enthused and motivated by these classes of young girls, young women who I met who are studying to be midwives. Midwives, for us, there are sheroes. They save lives. We need more midwives across Pakistan, across the globe. And so it was a real honor to be with them in Karachi. And then I also had an opportunity to meet with some of your entertainment leaders who are also helping to disseminate some of our messages around our mandate. And now in Islamabad, I'm also visiting our partners. But it's great. It's a beautiful country. And I have to say the welcome has been very warm and generous. Pakistani people are very close to my heart. Of course, there's a connection with my own home country, so it's great to be here.
That's very dear to us as well, because we as Pakistanis are very hospitable and we always treat our guests with a lot of respect and with a lot of honor. And I'm so glad to see that the feeling is reciprocated. You said you met a lot of entertainment leaders in Karachi. I've heard you've premiered a film there as well. And of course, we might or you might want to talk about it a bit later. But how important is this relationship that the UNFPA builds with stakeholders, with like people from the media industry that you've just talked in Karachi, and I'm sure other countries of the Asia Pacific as well? How do the stakeholders, further strengthen the mandate of the UNFPA?
Well, thank you, Omar. That's a very important question, because in this day and age, we have so many crises that are facing all of us. None of them are simple. They're all very complex challenges, some of them also very interconnected. And like life, there's no one set of stakeholders that are able to deliver on those, providing those solutions. So for us at the United Nations, we're very focused around our Sustainable Development Goals. 17 goals that basically talk about the economy, the environment, the social progress that we want to see across the globe for everybody, leave no one behind. And the 17th goal is actually the most special goal, because it talks about the power and the potential of partnership. Partnership is why we invest in engaging with our stakeholders. Now, you mentioned the media. The media have a powerful platform. The media can do so much in terms of providing information, raising awareness about critical issues, having healthy, informed debates, keeping people in positions of public position, public power, keeping them accountable for the work they're supposed to do. And I think also bringing new ideas to the table. So the media are a fantastic group of stakeholders for us at UNFPA. But equally, we need to work with a whole array of stakeholders, such as community workers, obviously government are really important to us, educators, you name it. We want to work with these stakeholders who ultimately are going to help us deliver on the SDGs. It takes integrated solutions, and that's why media, private sector, they're key to unlocking some of the challenges we have.
Your career has been quite robust and, quite impressive to say the least. As Special Assistant to two UN Deputy Secretary Generals, Chief of Staff to the Secretary General, Special Advisor, Policy Officer in the United Nations Ethics Office, UN Secretariat's Department of Management. You've worked in the British Home Office as well as in regulatory reforms and with the British Regional Assembly focusing on the European policy. You bring such a lot of positive baggage with you at the UNFPA. How has that helped your recent position?
I think the beauty about when you come into these positions is when you have a career that is checkered, where you have learnt along the way, where you've also benefited from mentors, people who trusted you and helped you grow as an individual. And of course, for someone who, I've always wanted to work for the United Nations. I believe deeply in the work and the intrinsic value of the United Nations and its charter and everything that it stands for. I think the more and more that you are exposed to the different elements of the challenges facing the world where the United Nations is called upon to respond, then you're able to actually contribute more. And that's where this, thank you for quoting, this experience that I've had, which I feel very honoured and blessed for. That has really helped in terms of getting me to where I need to be now as Regional Director for an Asia Pacific of UNFPA, which has its own very complex set of challenges. But it's also building on, one's life story. I grew up in Ireland, a large family. I'm very grateful to my parents who, taught all of us, all 9 kids, about the importance of social justice, the importance of always thinking of and trying to do your little bit for those who are less fortunate than you. I think when you just keep it simple and have that as your driving motivator, it doesn't matter what position you go into, your focus, your compass is right. And that helps you stay accountable. It also helps keep a reality check on, a lot of the work that you're doing, because we don't have the luxury for wasting time doing meetings just for the sake of them. We need to see impact and change, and we want action to happen.
Implementation of all that you've been talking about.
Absolutely, very key.
I think that's very important, and when you look at whatever happens is happening in the world, I think the key point that we take forward with us is implementation, whether it be within the United Nations or even at COP29. I think the key word is at the COP also social justice and implementation. Anyways, let's come to the UNFPA. Now, we know that it is an organization that works on reproductive health, on gender-based violence, on data, and on young people. These are 4 very important points for any society, including that in Pakistan. The motto is ensuring rights and choices for all. Again, something that I understand from your answer to the last question is something that is key not only to the UNFPA but also to you as a person. How has UNFPA's relationship developed with Pakistan? How are its key objectives and vision, moving the UNFPA forward in the right direction when it comes to its relationship with different countries?
Well, UNFPA has been in Pakistan for over 50 years. We have enjoyed a very strong, solid relationship with the government over those decades. But more importantly, we feel very blessed because the people of Pakistan have allowed us, have entrusted us to be part of the fabric of their society, part of their story in terms of making it a Pakistan where every Pakistani feels valued, can thrive, and has the right set of conditions for all of that. You mentioned Dr. Nafi Sadiq. We're extremely proud of that connection to Pakistan through our 2nd Executive Director. May her soul rest in peace. What I should also tell you about Nafis, Omar, is that she, not only was she the 2nd Executive Director for our agency, she was the first ever woman to head an agency of the United Nations, ever. across the globe.
So she has set that precedence.
She set the precedent, and then she went on and continued to be a trailblazer in terms of women's rights, population issues, and set the stage for many other women who looked to her as a role model. But you know, coming back to our relationship with Pakistan, of course, you know, like I mentioned earlier, we work a lot on the Sustainable Development Goals, particularly focused on reproductive health and gender-based violence, these issues that you mentioned. And this also aligns with the vision of the government. The government wants to eradicate you know, maternal mortality that can be avoided, eradicate gender-based violence, ensure that we have proper access to family planning for every young girl or woman who wants it or who needs it. We've done a lot of great work in all of these areas with Pakistan over the years, should it be on policies and legislative frameworks with respect to gender-based violence, working with our donors and other you know, mobilizers to help ensure better access to family planning, to choice of family planning across the country. Also, you know, working on data. Last year we were privileged to work with your country on the census work. Data is so critical to informing better implementation of a lot of these policies. So we have a long history with Pakistan that we're very grateful for, and we don't take it for granted when we're in a country in terms of the accountability that comes with our position as United Nations, as UNFPA, to make sure that what we're providing is adding value to the work of the government, but also to the many other stakeholders throughout the country, such as our health workforce, our civil society, our entertainment industry, because all of that
is interlinked, and I
interlinked.
think is counterbalances each other one way or the other in order to move your objectives and your mission forward.
Yes.
When it comes to the mission objectives, the next, of course, thing that comes to your mind is the challenges. Where there's a mission, where there's a vision, where there's an objective, there's always a challenge that is associated with it, because when you want to achieve something, there are always certain, you know, roadblocks that you encounter, and it is how you move beyond those roadblocks that is extremely pertinent to your role and to the role of your organization. Now, what do you feel are the most pressing challenges when it comes to your organizations, that is the UNFPA, whether it be on reproductive health, on participation of women, on youth engagement, or on data assessment as well, countries such as Pakistan, for example?
Let's start with the positives. There have been a lot of positives, a lot of work that has happened across the Asia-Pacific region actually over decades because of leadership, because of investments, because of focused action plans. Here in Asia-Pacific, maternal mortality rates have decreased by 2/3 since the year 2000. The amount of adolescent girls who are falling pregnant has been reduced by half since the year 2000. There's more kids, more babies who are being born in the presence of a skilled healthcare attendant now. So lots of progress, and we have to hold on to that progress, because as we turn to the challenges, it's important that we don't lose hope. It's important to remember that when you show leadership, when you make the investments, you're going to get the results. But yes, we do have challenges. We have challenges because every hour in Asia Pacific, 6 women are dying from pregnancy complications that could have been avoided. 6 women by the time you and I finish our interview today, Omar. I never take that for granted. Child marriage, which is another devastating abuse of human rights for young girls. Child marriage is still very prevalent in our region. Here in Pakistan, 18% of young girls under the age of 18 are child brides, forced to be child brides. So, you know, we have these challenges. If we look at the area of gender-based violence, 1 in 3 women will have suffered violence, often at the hands of an intimate partner, in their lifetime, at least once. And 1 in 4, and 1 in 4 women, or young women in particular, will not be able to access the type of family planning that they want. So there are a lot of challenges. Here in Pakistan, you know, universal health care is sitting at only around 20%. That's not where we want to be. That's not where the government wants to be. We want to be able to improve that. Also, if I look at the areas of education, the dropout rates are particularly worrisome here in Pakistan. And also, if we look at the data with respect to family planning and the access that young women have, it's not where it needs to be. Maternal mortality, it's going to take 120 years to reach the zero target at the current rate of progress. It's going to take around 90 years to reach that unmet need for family planning here in Pakistan at the current rate of implementation. But again, this isn't about finger pointing. These are very complex issues.
One step at a time, as we say.
One step at a time, but we need concerted efforts from all partners, and we need those investments. Because you have to remember that society, any society, is never going to progress if you leave behind women and girls. Women and girls, they're 50, sometimes 51% of society. They need to be treated with the dignity, the respect, to have the proper access that they need to all of these issues, to be protected from the violence that they unduly suffer. We need to do better for our women and our girls, across the country, across the region, because ultimately, these figures that I'm telling to you, they do impact the broader socio-economic development of the country. So if we stay focused on women and girls, it's going to unlock a whole series of potential for the country.
That is so true. I was just thinking aloud. Gender violence is something that is not specific to Asia Pacific. It's a global phenomenon that we also see a lot in the West. Coming to also, women's and girls' rights, the first country that I think of is Afghanistan, of all the countries. The way, it's so sad for us being in the neighborhood and we see things like happening. But I don't want to ask you about that, but I was just kind of adding to that.
But if I may, firstly, you're right. Gender-based violence, there is no single nation in the world that does not have gender-based violence. That's the stark reality. And this is coming on the back of decades, centuries of patriarchy, actually. And this is why we need to tackle it at its root cause, which is harmful traditions, harmful social norms. We need to work with our men and boys. We need to start from an early age to ensure that we get positive masculinity, that we deconstruct a lot of these myths and stereotypes, but also that we underscore the fundamental basis of all of this, which is everybody deserves human rights and their own dignity as an individual. You mentioned Afghanistan. I just came from there last week. This was my second visit to Afghanistan. And sadly, it is a terribly depressing place right now because of the state of rights for women and girls in particular. And we as UNFPA, again, we've had a long history in Afghanistan. We've been working there at the community level for over 50 years. We are providing services and support to women and girls throughout the country, particularly in this time of need, when they are being obliterated from society, when their rights are being completely stripped. And it's really important that we don't forget about these, what we call at the United Nations, protracted crises, these crises that are going on for years and years. And yes, the world is complicated. There's less money to go around. Yes. We all have our own issues, our own bread and butter issues at the kitchen table. But my goodness, Afghanistan reminds you of just, how fortunate we actually are when you think about the state of, affairs for women and girls in that country.
That is so.
But equally, Omar, I have to tell you that, certainly for someone who's working for a United Nations entity, we focus on gender equality, the empowerment of women. Sadly, I don't need to look to an Afghanistan to be assured that the pushback on women's rights is evergreen. Sadly, we're still at a stage where we are losing gains on a daily basis from those efforts to ensure gender equality and the empowerment of women.
To be very frank, you talk about patriarchy. Even in the developed countries,
exactly,
we still have such an impounding presence of patriarchy that sometimes it gets suffocating. And I'm so proud, I mean, I can say as a Pakistani, I'm so proud we have had a Prime Minister who was a woman, Benazir Bhutto.
yes, yes.
We've had Nafees Sadiq that you've given an example. We've had a Speaker of the National Assembly who was a woman. And we have had women at the helm of affairs. And you know, being a Muslim country, it makes us proud that we have set the precedent for also so many countries in the West of a woman being at the helm of affairs, and not just once, more than once. And you know, when you talk of patriarchy, that is what is very important. You change it from the base up, but also from the up towards down. You know, it has to be in a pyramid form, and it has to happen sooner than later. I mean, I don't know, I'm very I wouldn't say sentimental, but very attached to gender equality and to women's rights, you know, and that is why I feel as a person, every single religion gives a woman their rights, their authority, and their due presence in society. It's unfortunate that society and social norms change and contort religions to such an extent that it all becomes a patriarchal environment at the end of the day.
Absolutely, you're spot on, Omar. And you know, if you look around the world, the amount of presidents or prime ministers who are female, I think sadly the statistic is around single digit. It's less than 10. I mean, it is so depressing actually. And of course, for those young girls who are going through school and working so hard, you know, they want a role model of someone, but they're not seeing.
True.
They're not seeing themselves in these positions of power. And that's why, you know, at UNFPA, we don't just talk about gender equality, we talk about gender equity. Because gender equity is going to make the difference. So, you know, gender equity is about making sure at the boardroom, at the decision table, women are there. Because when you do that, then you have better outcomes for women.
You have a balanced outcome.
You have a balanced outcome, of course, but you also, because for a lot of these solutions, like for example, let me tell you about an initiative that we have at UNFPA. It's called our Equity 2030 Alliance, and that's all about making sure that we have more women in the field of healthcare technology. It wasn't until a few years ago that the first crash test dummy was based on the body of a woman.
Oh.
Only a few years ago. So if you imagine all the cars that we've been driving for decades, they haven't been based on the shape, the crash test dummy was not based on the shape of a woman's body, let alone even a pregnant woman who has, of course, has special needs. But we also see from, you know, some of the pharmaceutical research that we do that it takes 4 to 5 times longer sometimes to prescribe the conditions for women than compared to men. All of this points back to women have not been in the boardrooms, at the decision tables, involved in these design processes that ultimately do require some specific focus for women and girls because of their own unique needs. So this is why gender equity is also part of that broader fight for women's rights, for women's empowerment, because equity is what's going to make the difference.
I totally agree with you on that. You know, you talk of patriarchy, you talk of gender balance, you talk of gender equity. I think what is also very important is to, from the very onset, teach the young boys also how to respect the girls, how to give them their due rights. You know, in societies that are mainly patriarchal, this does not happen. If there is 2 morsels of bread, 1.5 morsel bread will be given to the boy and half will be given to the girl. We've seen so many stories across the world, and not just talking of Asia Pacific. How can the UNFPA, in your point of view, engage, or how has it been engaging the men and the boys to shift these damaging attitudes that are present towards the female gender, and further gender equity and gender equality? And also, you know, every country has a socio-cultural sensitivities. Pakistan has it, other countries in the region have it also. How do you move around country to country looking at their specific socio-cultural sensitivities, but still, you know, moving towards gender equity and equality?
Yeah, very good question, very good point, Omar. You know, the youth of any country are its potential for unhindered success, unhindered prosperity, unhindered set of rights. And that's why it's really important that we work closely with our youth to empower them, to give them access to all the information that they need so that they can transition from being adolescents into adulthood And all of that positive work that you do with them has a positive influence as they transition and they become positive agents of change in their society. We focus on our work with young boys, young men, because they're key to the issue of achieving gender equality. So we work in many different ways. We work in communities, providing courses that teach life skills, that teach positive masculinity, that deconstruct a lot of these, gender stereotypes and harmful social norms that we've seen, like you mentioned, patriarchy over decades, and really also helping to have positive, healthy discussions between young boys and young girls about having a relationship, about showing respect for each other. We also work with faith communities because we really rely on faith communities, faith leaders. They are key to unlocking some of these challenges.
Because the boys and the men listen to sometimes to the faith communities and their leaders much more than they would listen to their teachers or the elders.
Very much so. And what's important in that work with faith communities is firstly to start from a position of respect. We're not coming to preach. We're coming clearly wanting to see change. But we believe that, when you do it in a very deliberate, respectful manner, you are able to have, conversations with these faith leaders that show how some of these, practices or traditions can be not only harmful for the woman or for that young girl, but also holding back society. And so, at UNFPA across the globe, we work with faith leaders, and we're very proud of, some of the outcome from that advocacy and engagement with the Council of Islamic Ideology, for example. They came out and said that child marriage is wrong. It should be stopped. That's them saying it. That's not the UNFPA. It takes time. You have to invest in communities. You have to also appreciate that, men and boys can't be left behind. So we have to bring them along in terms of all of these initiatives targeted at education, at economic empowerment, at health, etc. It's very important that we bring everybody in society along. But obviously, we're very focused on the fact that women and girls are the ones who are being most left behind right now, no matter what the scenario is. And that's where we need men also to be brave. We need men in positions of leadership, but also just the regular person in their community, in their family, in their work setting.
It all starts from the simple household, doesn't it? And then it kind of expands.
It does. And men need to speak up and they need to step up. And I think you'll get that positive ripple effect whenever you have more and more men showing that leadership, that responsibility to say that some of these practices have to stop.
I couldn't agree more, and I have to repeat this phrase again and again because I am in complete alignment with whatever you have been saying. Now, Pio, also, you talk about attitudes, you talk about changing the behavior pattern, but sometimes there are external factors that change those behavior patterns. For example, lack of job opportunities, push sometimes men to horrible attitudes towards the women and the girls. Societal attitudes change because of the environment. Climate change has had such a disastrous impact on societies and societal values, and we have seen that happening across the world because of the economic impacts that the climate change has had on almost every country of the world. Some of the developed countries have been able to cope with it, others haven't. And we are seeing the trickle-down effect in the societies in the developing countries especially. Now, considering this growing impact of climate change on the communities, especially the vulnerable communities in developing countries, how is the UNFPA continuing to support the pregnant women, addressing child and maternal mortality and ensuring the continuation of all its important mandates under such challenging environments?
Yeah. Well, here in Asia Pacific, it's the most climate disaster prone region in the world. And for us at UNFPA, that means that we need to be ready to act with speed whenever some of these climate calamities happen, so that we're able to provide life-saving support and services to women and girls that are most affected. let's be clear as well. For every climate disaster, it is a woman or a girl who bears a disproportionate impact by that climate disaster. They are more likely to suffer violence in the aftermath of a climate disaster. They are more likely to die than a man is in a climate disaster. They are more likely to be left economically disempowered because of climate change. So that means we really need solutions that are targeted towards women and girls so that we can both uplift them, protect, prevent, and promote them in these climate discussions. You and I are meeting at a time when the COP is happening in Azerbaijan. And really what that's calling for is a whole set of holistic, comprehensive solutions across the board where we're able to make sure that we have better gender-sensitive budgeting, better gender-sensitive governance of these climate issues, not just around the adaptation and the resilience efforts, but of course adaptation and resilience are extremely important as well. These things cost money, but ultimately it's a return on investment. So we need to make sure that the health system, the health workforce is properly insulated from a lot of these climate disasters, that they have the right type of supplies, the right type of infrastructure, that we're able to train our healthcare workers, our midwives, how to continue to provide services in these climate moments. But also we need to put in place better support services that will help ultimately the victims of a climate disaster. And that, for us at UNFPA, for example, we're very often one of the first agencies on the ground within 36, 48 hours, providing those necessary reproductive maternal health services, the psychosocial support. We very often in these settings, we're operating mobile health teams that can reach very dangerous and difficult places where others aren't reaching, so that we can ensure that that specialized support that is needed for particularly pregnant women, that it is there. So there's a lot that can be done. But the other part I would add, Omar, is about the awareness of climate change. There has been a lot of discussion around the climate change reports and the studies and whether it's real or it's not. It's real. It is happening. There is no doubt about that. But I think an emerging piece of research is what are the impacts that it can have on, for example, pregnant women, and the increased heat stress that can cause to the baby, the unborn baby, to the pregnant mother.
The mental stress.
Particularly in the final trimester. The mental stress that comes with it, the mental stress that it causes to everybody. And then what are the devastating impacts that can come from that? Gender-based violence. That's what happens in the home because of that heat stress. So there's a lot of this this area around climate resilience as regards to maternal health, reproductive health that needs to be looked at more. But of course, this all requires funding, it requires data, and it requires capacities at national and subnational levels across the globe, but particularly in those countries that suffer most the climate change disasters, so that we can have the data that will then inform the right kind of investment and policy.
I can't say anything more against the notion, because I totally understand where you're coming from. You said you're one of many brothers and sisters, which brings me to the concept of higher fertility in this day and age. There was a recent State of the World Population report that the UNFPA brought about, and it said that the people are possibilities. What do you think, in your point of view, can be done to convert the people into human capital and to move away from population anxiety in the 21st century, looking at all the challenges that people are confronted with?
This is really important for us at UNFPA to demystify a lot of the myths that are out there regarding is it low fertility, high fertility, aging society, a youth bulge. Let's not focus on the numbers. Let's focus on the people and the potential that we want to unlock with that society. I think it comes down to a few issues. Number one is we need women to have more access to family planning, more choice when it comes to family planning. and when they're empowered to make decisions about their own body, then you're going to have half of society who are more empowered in their lives to make the kind of life choices that ultimately will decide the path that they go down. But more broadly, what I would say is that what we don't want are population policies that somehow feel that a woman's body is the answer. So low fertility, countries with low fertility, pro-natalist policies that emerge as a result of low fertility rates, that's not the answer either. I think part of that is about ensuring that we have societies that, you know, allow young couples to make informed decisions about the kind of family that they want, but that you create the right economic conditions, that also you're able to provide the right incentives in the workplace. When you turn to countries with high fertility rates, this is where we need to really stay focused on what is the potential from that society, that population. So, for example, you know, here in Pakistan, 2/3 of your population are under the age of 30.
Yes.
Education is obviously key to making sure that that population of under 30 are able to contribute to Pakistan's present and future. And that means that you need targeted investments that drive economic empowerment, that drive societal and community resilience, but also that you have the kind of investments that are, you know, targeted where most the need is and targeted towards those who are being left behind, those in rural communities, for example. Really important that we bring them along in the development of a country. Ultimately, I would say that the discussion around population policies is about making sure that we have comprehensive and informed discussion and looking at the potential and not the negatives. If you look at countries who, you know, not like Pakistan, but, you know, who have an aging or aged society, how do we take advantage? How do we prosper from having that silver economy? Silver economy is those who are aged over 50. You know, they obviously contribute hugely to the GDP of an economy. But also many of them, because we have better conditions now, they're living longer, healthier lives. So how do we get elder adults to continue to contribute to a society after the, you know, the supposed retirement age? How do we create the right kind of enabling environment that helps us respect our elders and see them as not a burden on an economy, but rather as a positive force within that economy? And then the final piece around that is also the care economy. I think in many of these settings where we're talking about population issues, what's not often talked about is this idea of the care economy, the informal care economy. Very often that relies on a woman. She is the one who is staying at home to look after elderly adults or younger children.
And that is a global phenomenon.
And that's a global phenomenon, exactly. And that's why we need targeted investments that, you know, tackle the issue of the care economy, the unpaid care economy, because then, you know, ultimately more women will be able to, you know, be economically empowered, they'll be able to continue the education that they want, and then we have a more balanced, you know, set of outcomes.
I think that is, at the end of the day, that is what the UNFPA wants, a balanced set of outcomes, a balance within the society, a balance within the genders, and an environment of respect, and an environment of justice, social justice especially. Now, given UNFPA's special mandate in all of these specific areas, what is the organization's future strategy, particularly, you know, to achieve the SDGs? Because, you know, you've got, what, less than 6 years now in front of you to achieve them, and a lot of pressure must be there, because it's not just relegated to one country, but it's relegated to all different countries that come under your mandate, for example. And also there's the International Conference on Population and Development, the ICPD, and whose role is also very important. When you look at the future strategies, could you share some of those with us on what you plan to do till 2030 in order to achieve, if not all, I hope it's all, but the maximum SDGs?
Yeah, you're right. Time is ticking, and time is not on our side. So we really got to work with, you know, renewed energy and vigor. We have to be honest about a lot of these challenges and come to the table with an honest approach, but also a willingness to work out what is the solution that best fits the particular context. For us at UNFPA, we will always be fighting for that woman or that girl to make sure that she is safe in her pregnancy, that she has the kind of family planning choices that she is entitled to, that she is safe from gender-based violence, that she has platform and power, and that we're unlocking that potential alongside her brothers and cousins and, you know, all men and boys, so that all of society is able to thrive. That's what we'll continue to fight for. We'll be fighting for that workforce to make sure that they have the kind of trainings and supplies and infrastructure that they need to be able to do the life-saving work that they do day in and day out. Many of the challenges that our midwives are facing are preventable, actually. If only, you know, we had the right set of if only we had the right set of health investments in place that would prevent a lot of these issues from occurring. So we'll continue to fight for that. But I think what's more important is that we are responsive to the needs of our governments, to the vision of our governments. Certainly at UNFPA, that is what helps us to stay focused in terms of making sure that we leave nobody behind, but also that we're working in concert with how the government sees the future, which ultimately, all governments have signed up to the Sustainable Development Goals. So we're very much aligned in that work. But more broadly, I would say that it's not just with governments. We actually, back to I think your first point earlier in the interview, we need to work with all stakeholders. It takes everybody to be involved in these issues, either by channeling the right investments, by raising awareness, by deconstructing a lot of these harmful social norms at the community level. When you have all hands on deck, with everybody committed to that central goal around gender equality, or women's empowerment, then I think we're going to get, certainly further down the road towards the SDGs than where we are right now. It's going to be a very difficult journey, though, I would say, and especially in these days when the world is facing, a lot of crises. We need to make sure that we don't get distracted, that we don't forget about, the many different needs across our globe, and that we keep all of our governments, all of our public service institutions, that we keep them accountable and we keep them focused.
Oh, I mean, of course, it's a wonderful message, and I hope that I really hope from the bottom of my heart that the UNFPA manages to achieve all the SDG targets, and that as a result of all these efforts that you have been putting in, and your team has been putting in across the Asia Pacific, I really hope that a proper change occurs in all the different countries where you have been, informing, regulating, and constructing a new environment for all genders, and with social justice and respect at the center of all the policies that you adhere to. Finally, Pio, and I'm so happy that with warriors like yourself, within the UNFPA, I cannot be but optimistic about the future of our society, of the societies in Asia Pacific, and of societies across the world. Because when you've got people, going with an attitude that is positive, that relies on communication, and that relies on interpersonal skills, and working together and taking all stakeholders with you, it is there and then that you make that proper change. It might come sooner than later, it might come later, but it will come if you continue that effort. Any final messages for our people in Pakistan through our platform at PTV World, as far as population health is concerned, or gender equality is concerned, or youth empowerment is concerned? Would you like to say anything to our people in Pakistan through this platform?
What I would say to the people of Pakistan, but particularly to the women and girls of Pakistan, is you have voice, you have agency, you have choice. It's very important that all of us push for that and ensure that we are moving forward together as one Pakistan society, that we leave no one behind, no matter who she is, if she's in an urban setting or rural setting, if she has a disability, if she is a migrant or a refugee. We need to take care of everybody in Pakistan. And I think when we do that, when we all show our own personal, individual commitment, it doesn't matter what your rank or file is in life. Everybody has the opportunity to make change, to have a positive influence on each other as human beings every day. That's within our gift. All of us have that. And I think stay focused. It's okay to start small. And I think then gradually you'll amass to a very positive change that will be unstoppable, actually.
Inshallah, I really hope that happens. Thank you very much, P.O. Smith, to have joined us, Regional Director, ladies and gentlemen, of Asia Pacific at the United Nations FPA, to have worked so diligently. And I'm so amazed when I see and talk to people like them, because I feel that it all starts from one person and then it creates that ripple effect, you know, that moves the society and nation forward in the right direction. Thank you again, P.O., to have joined us. And as I say, you know, keep the good work going. Keep it, you know, moving at the pace that you are, working at. And I'm sure that even before 2030, the UNFPA, Asia Pacific at least, will be able to achieve all the SDG. Thank you very much, P.O.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, with that we come to an end of today's Diplomatic Enclave. We'll see you inshallah next week with another guest and another story, another cooperation. Take care of yourselves. Allah Hafiz.